SpongeBob is not who you think he is. I thought SpongeBob was a happy little fry cook with a big imagination, that he couldn't even hurt a fly, but boy was I wrong. SpongeBob has a dark side, and he's hurting a lot more than just flies. By the end of this video, I'm gonna show you just how evil SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs really are. And trust me, you won't believe what they're cooking at the Krusty Krab. This is the Fishy Formula Theory. And speaking of what's cooking, remember the Fry Cook games? In Season 2, Episode 19, SpongeBob and Patrick are fighting for the glory of the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket. But partway through the episode, something horrible happens. As Patrick pole vaults over a vat of boiling oil, he lands on the handle, launching the oil into the crowd, slaughtering dozens of fish in the audience and turning them into fish sticks. Remember what happens next? Did they shut down the event and call 911? No. Instead, this random guy comes out of nowhere and starts selling them as snacks.
Get your fish sticks here!
When I watched this as a kid, I missed a key detail that lays the dark foundation of my theory. He doesn't make the sign right before selling the fish sticks. It was already there. He just flips it over, which means this has happened before and proves that the people of Bikini Bottom are actually cannibals. But this is just the beginning of the horror. In Season 3, Episode 15, Midlife Crustacean, let's shift our focus back to SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs. Near the end of the episode, we find them committing a literal crime alongside Patrick Star, breaking and entering into a home in the dead of night with one sinister purpose: looking at a girl's underwear while she sleeps. Watching this as a kid, I didn't realize how incredibly scary this really is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But this is just the first of many crimes, and what comes next is even worse. In Season 3, Episode 4, The Nasty Patty, a health inspector visits the Krusty Krab. After giving him hundreds of dollars worth of free food, breaking news comes on the television saying someone is impersonating a health inspector to get free food around Bikini Bottom. Now, when Mr. Krabs hears this, he wants revenge. Instead of doing what any normal person would do and calling the police, he decides to take matters into his own hands. So SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs turn an ordinary Krabby Patty into the most diabolical Krabby Patty ever spawned, the Nasty Patty, and serve it to the health inspector to teach him a lesson with some good old-fashioned food poisoning. Now, they didn't know this, but a fly went down his throat before he even took a bite, causing him to choke and eventually get knocked unconscious. Long story short, they thought the Nasty Patty killed him. So once again, instead of doing the right thing and calling the police, they tried to cover it up to keep themselves out of prison, dragging his body out into the wilderness and unknowingly burying him alive. But after their dirty deed was done, the police showed up asking for Krabby Patties. Unfortunately for the two criminals, it started raining, causing the freshly buried health inspector to slide down the hill towards the police car. So SpongeBob hides the body in the trunk. Once they reach the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob sneaks the body into the freezer. But before long, SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs end up admitting to the murder, but only because the police were about to find out anyway, since Officer Nancy wanted some ice for her soda. Luckily for them, the inspector ended up surviving his injuries, and the whole thing was laughed off as some kind of a sick joke. But it was no laughing matter. SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs were willing to poison a man over some free food, bury him in a field to cover up the murder, and even lie to the police. This marks a turning point for SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs, and you won't believe what happens next. In Season 6, Episode 5, titled The Splinter, which was coincidentally one of the most visually disturbing episodes of all time, we find something even more shocking at the Krusty Krab. As SpongeBob is getting ready for work on one fateful day, he starts grabbing the ingredients for the Krabby Patties. He takes out the lettuce, tomatoes, cheese, and so on. But pay attention to how he grabs the patties. At about 35 seconds into the episode, we watch SpongeBob throw his spatula into the freezer like a boomerang, catching the patties and bringing them to SpongeBob on the way back. But during this scene, I noticed something that most people missed. As the spatula is flying, we see a dead body frozen in the cooler. What reasonable explanation could there possibly be for a corpse in the freezer? And does SpongeBob know about it? The answer to that question can be found here in Season 3, Episode 3, titled Just One Bite, where SpongeBob convinces Squidward to try a Krabby Patty for the first time, and he loves it. But Squidward doesn't want SpongeBob to know about his newfound Krabby Patty addiction. So partway through the episode, Squidward fishes a half-eaten patty from the garbage to eat secretly, but SpongeBob takes it from him, saying,
What's this doing here?
here! This patty should be cremated!
Now, why would a sandwich need to be cremated? We're about to find out. Later on in this very episode, Squidward is at the Krusty Krab before it even opens, ready to devour every last patty in the patty vault, when he is once again foiled by SpongeBob, who was there early in the morning to do what? Do you remember? He was there to count the sesame seeds on the buns. If SpongeBob is counting every single sesame seed on every single bun in the Krusty Krab, that means SpongeBob must have known about the body in the freezer in the Splinter. And since he knows about it and isn't actively freaking out, it must be getting used for something at the Krusty Krab. We know that the people in Bikini Bottom are cannibals. We know that SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs have done some very, very bad things. We know that the Krusty Krab keeps bodies in the freezer, and we know SpongeBob cremates patties. Could this be because Krabby Patties are actually made out of fellow sea creatures? Maybe SpongeBob was cremating a former acquaintance from around Bikini Bottom, and that's why he referred to the patty as a he in this scene.
I know you didn't like him, but it means so much that you came.
Those patties have to come from somewhere, and if there's one thing we know about Mr. Krabs, it's this. He cares about one thing above all else: money. And he's willing to do anything to get his grubby little claws on it. He tried to poison a guy over some free food, and in Season 3, Episode 17, titled Born Again Krabs, he even tries to rip a man's arm off over a single penny. So why not make money off of a little repurposed fish? Maybe that's why Mr. Krabs is really so protective of his secret formula. And we can't forget about SpongeBob, who cares about nothing more than another satisfied customer, no matter the cost. But hold up, we're not done yet. I have to address the elephant in the room. I can already hear the comments, but Earl, Hillenburg specifically stated there is no meat in Krabby Patties. You're right, he did. Case closed. Or maybe not. Stephen Hillenburg actually had a lot of inconsistency when it comes to the Krabby Patty Secret Formula. In Season 5, Episode 1 titled Friend or Foe, we see the creation of the Krabby Patty, which was just a bunch of ingredients being knocked off of the shelf into the patty mixture while Plankton and Mr. Krabs were arguing as kids. However, this completely contradicts what Mr. Krabs says in Season 4, Episode 7, titled Enemy-in-Law, where Plankton finds out that Mr. Krabs' mom actually knows the formula.
Your mother knows the Krabby Patty formula? Don't play stupid with me. Of course she does. It's an old Krabs family recipe. It's an old Krabs family recipe.
But that doesn't make any sense. How could it be an old family recipe if Plankton and Mr. Krabs created it together? This could mean one of three things. Number one, Stephen Hillenburg didn't really care about consistency with the Krabby Patty. Therefore, its history and formula can change from episode to episode, allowing for a huge amount of creative license since the canon of SpongeBob is seemingly very malleable. Therefore, what Stephen Hillenburg said about the Krabby Patty containing no meat can't be taken as gospel because the very origin of the Krabby Patty itself is different from episode to episode. Number two, maybe Stephen Hillenburg was trying to keep the secret of the Krabby Patty formula from us, too. Maybe, like Mr. Krabs to Plankton, he's saying things to throw us off the trail as well. Or, number three, this could mean that the show SpongeBob SquarePants exists in the multiverse. Oh, come on, Earl. There's no evidence of a multiverse in SpongeBob, right? Well, let's take a deep dive, shall we? In the original SpongeBob movie, a main character is King Neptune, who can be seen here. However, in SpongeBob Season 1, Episode 19, titled Neptune's Spatula, there is a completely different King Neptune. This begs the question, how are there multiple King Neptunes? Because of the multiverse. Like how in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are many Lokis and Thanoses. Maybe there are several universes containing Bikini Bottoms, with one containing King Neptune in the movie, one containing King Neptune in the TV show, and even one containing King Poseidon from the movie Sponge on the Run. If this is true, maybe there is a universe where the Krabby Patty contains no meat whatsoever, like Hillenburg says, while in another, the Sea Dwellers are openly cannibalistic and the Krusty Krab keeps bodies in the freezer to be ground down into the delicious burgers SpongeBob serves to the customers. This isn't even that far-fetched if you think about it. Remember Season 1, Episode 14, titled SB129? In this episode, we watch a very sad scene where Squidward is utterly and completely alone, stranded in a void of endless space, surrounded by disembodied voices repeating the word
Alone.
over and over again, after a mishap with his time machine. Yes, Squidward used a literal time machine and accidentally ended up in a completely different dimension. And if you need even more proof, just look back to the Fry Cook games. If you take a closer look at the fish in the audience, we can clearly see that some of the fish have clones. Many of them, in fact, which either means different versions of the same fish have gathered in one dimension for the inter-universal Fry Cook games, or someone is cloning them, both of which would explain how the Krusty Krab never runs out of Krabby Patty meat. And by the way, only 17% of you guys are subscribed. What are you doing? Subscribe! But for real, this took a lot of work to make. So if you guys want to support me, please hit like and gently press the subscribe button. It does so much to support the channel. And go watch this next video. See you guys soon.